You're listening to Soap Dirt, the latest in television entertainment news.
Hey, General Hospital fans. Today I want to talk about Rocco Falconieri's twisted history and origin story with the woman he calls Other Mother, a.k.a. Dr. Britt Westbourne. If you were watching back then, maybe you remember all of this, or maybe you've forgotten a little bit. And if you're newer to GH, you may not know the backstory, and it's going to blow your mind. It's Belinda from Soap Dirt, and we're going to tell you why Lulu Spencer despises Britt with very good reason, and Dante too. And this backstory also explains what you're seeing now with Emma Drake ready to strangle Britt and why those two despise each other. If you're not following us, please click subscribe and let's get into it. So it all started back in 2012. Lulu and Dante were married. They wanted to start a family, but after trying for a while, Lulu was diagnosed with a uterine issue. They diagnosed it as one thing and then later changed it as something else, so I'm not going to go into the scientific names. Bottom line, she was unable to carry a pregnancy to term. So Dante and his wife were planning to adopt, but then Lulu lied on their application and they were blacklisted from adopting. A lot of stuff came out that Dante didn't know before, like when Lulu chose to have an abortion in high school. So then Dante and Lulu started looking for a surrogate, and back then Britt just happened to be Lulu's OBGYN. So Britt oversaw the process of harvesting Lulu's eggs, getting Dante's sperm, and making some embryos. And then Maxie agreed to be their surrogate, which is insane and would never happen in real life because transplant patients don't qualify to be surrogates, and she's had a heart transplant. But anyway, Britt was able to use their biological material. She made 3 embryos, and the first one went into Maxie, and she was carrying Dante and Lulu's baby. That got messy when Maxie fell, and then she had a miscarriage, and then she had a one-night stand with Spinelli. She got pregnant. Maxie lied and pretended the baby was Lulu. She didn't even tell Spinelli. But of course, it was her and Spinelli's baby, who is now called Georgie. There was this messy custody thing with Spinelli, and Lulu and Dante wanted custody. They were stunned over Maxie's lies, and in the end, Spinelli got custody, and Lulu got crushed, and Maxie was banned from seeing her daughter. The next embryo that got used is the one that became Rocco Falconieri. Back then, Britt had just gotten dumped by Emma's dad, the very handsome Patrick Drake. And part of the reason was because the bitch was just mean and she despised Patrick's daughter, Emma. Remember, she keeps talking about how she barbecued her doll. She really did that, set her favorite doll on fire. So Britt stole one of Lulu and Dante's embryos to implant in herself. Liesl actually did the implanting procedure because you really can't do it to yourself. And she put the baby in Britt, and she then told Patrick that she was pregnant with his child. Britt did get attached to the baby during the pregnancy, and Patrick rejected her, though. He didn't want her, and he did say that he would sue for custody. So then Britt got her bestie Brad to say that he was the baby daddy, and that was the lie that Britt started spreading. And by the way, it was Brad who spilled the truth of Georgie's DNA back then when she was being called Baby Connie. So Brad was the one who told Lulu and Dante that was not their kid. I miss Brad. He is all drama. So Britt told Patrick that Brad was her sperm donor because she was desperate to have a child. And then Britt gave birth to the son she named Benjamin one night at Windermere when she went to labor and couldn't get to the hospital in time. So she gave birth on Spoon Island. And then Britt had to lie again about Ben, a.k.a. Rocco, and his paternity because he clearly wasn't half Asian. So that didn't line up with the lies she told about Brad. So Britt then told Nicholas, whom she was dating and was engaged to and was about to marry, that she actually stole a sperm sample from the hospital. All right, now this is really interesting because these are like 2 interesting embryo stories, but what's even crazier is the timeline. Let me tell you, because there's a lot of overlap. So Maxie gave birth to baby Connie, aka Georgie, August 21st, 2013, and handed the baby over to Lulu, lying to her bestie, lying to Spinelli. And then less than 3 weeks after that, Britt gave birth to Lulu and Dante's biological son. So by October of 2013, the truth was out that Connie was really Maxie and Spinelli's kid, who's now called Georgie. Lulu wanted to keep the baby, but Spinelli fought for and won custody. So, of course, Lulu was devastated and childless. But at the same time, across town on Spoon Island, she had a biological child and didn't know it because Britt had Rocco and was raising the baby with Nicholas. And Rocco was born September 9th, 2013. So there was like 3 weeks between when these kids were born. And the truth stayed hidden about Rocco for months. It was in February when Ben, aka Rocco, was 5 months old that Elizabeth noticed that Britt's son had a latex allergy like Dante does, and Liz had noticed other similarities. So Nicholas also mentioned to Liz that Britt used a sperm donor, so Elizabeth ran a secret DNA test and confirmed that the baby was Dante's. But they still didn't know that it was the embryo child. So Lulu and Dante found out February 2014 about it, but they thought Britt had just stolen Dante's sperm. The whole truth wasn't even out yet. And by then, Britt and Nicholas were getting ready to get married, and Britt decided to come partially clean to her fiance, Nicholas. So Britt told him that Liesl stole Dante's sperm sample, but she kept the Lulu part of it to herself. But then in very soapy fashion, Britt wrote a letter confessing the whole thing to Lulu to get it off her chest, and she intended to burn the letter, but of course got the envelopes mixed up, and Elizabeth found the letter and ran to Lulu and unfolded the shocking truths. So then at Britt and Nicholas's engagement party, Lulu showed up and dropped the bombshell, which of course horrified her brother Nicholas. And of course he dumped Britt, and she was arrested for stealing Lulu's last 2 embryos. So Rocco was one and Liesl had kept the other. And here's what's wild. When Nicholas confronted Britt about stealing Lulu's child, then Britt just kind of clapped back and said, I stole an embryo, not a baby, not the same thing. And also, even wilder, Diane Killer Miller got Britt off. She didn't go to prison for stealing the embryo because back then there were no laws against it about embryos to define whether they were property or biological. There just weren't a lot of laws. So even in the past couple of years, there have been drastic changes in how states are treating embryos under the law. So at this point, Liesl had Ben while Britt was facing criminal charges. And then when she got off scot-free, she turned on her mom, Liesl. She took Ben and she gave the boy to his rightful parents, Lulu and Dante, at last. That was April of 2014. So Britt was acting as Rocco's mom for about 7 to 8 months, plus the 9 months of pregnancy. And Lulu was actually classy. She even let Britt say goodbye to the child she'd given birth to. And later, after Nicholas had dumped her and she was pretty much universally hated, Britt took off. She left Port Charles, and she would show up now and then. In a run of bad luck, Lulu and Dante then found out in 2016, I think it was, that their 3rd embryo was not viable. All right, just a real quick bonus here. The Charlotte embryo twist overlaps these timelines too. Not long after Britt and Liesl stole the last 2 embryos, Lulu was kidnapped by Stavros Cassadine, and he stole an egg, intending to have a baby with her. He was killed, and then Helena took Lulu's egg and fertilized it with her son Valentine's sperm and made an embryo. And then he stole the embryo and had a surrogate carry his daughter, who turned out to be Charlotte, of course, because he didn't want Helena to have the kid and twist it all up. So Charlotte should have been born post 2018 based on just all of this stuff. But because of Soros, they retconned her date of birth back to 2008. So Lulu's 2 kids were both born by surrogate and both as a result of stolen embryos. I will give Britt a bit of credit. She's almost always asked about Rocco when she talked to people, when she would pop up in town occasionally. And Britt actually legit does love and care about Rocco, but nothing justifies what she did. And Lulu, very understandably, still hates Britt and probably always will. And that's why when Rocco uses a phrase like other mother, I think it's soul crushing, because Lulu had no say in what happened and she was cheated out of a lot of time with her son. She wanted to use those embryos to make babies, but only one of the 3 was usable, and then the secret one that she didn't know about till years later, and now she's got Rocco and Charlotte.
Thank you for being a loyal listener. Follow us wherever you get your podcast, because you don't want to miss the next episode. Soap Dirt is on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more.